Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Luigi's Mansion 2, aka Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon for those of you who lived in North America, for the Nintendo 3DS/Nintendo Switch, as we are still playing through Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. So, last time, we essentially did manage to show off the Portrait Pop mode, and overall, we're actually not doing that great on that particular mode, if only because of one thing. Everybody has left that particular match. So hopefully we can able to redeem ourselves for third time lucky as a charm, I guess, by able to actually showing off the final mode we can able to show off in ScareScraper mode. And that's what appears to be Hunter mode. So because of that, that'll be the subject for today's video, and this time around though, as you can tell, I'm actually going to be able to create a room for it this time. So just to ensure for the fact that we won't be able to come across into a lot of issues and all that stuff. And as you can tell about the fact that you can able to actually adjust of the actual how many floors we can able to go into and what specific difficulty we can select. And on top of all that stuff though, there's also technically the surprise mode that you can also try to participate, but it's just like, you know, shuffle around different aspects within each and every single floors. So that's all there really is to it when it comes to the forms of surprise mode, but I digress. So if you couldn't tell already about the fact that today's date, of course, there is the 31st of October today, in some cases in 2024 today, where not only today is the final day of October in 2024, but also, ooh, it's Halloween Day. So I guess it's a perfect opportunity to able to actually potentially trying to finish this game off and enjoying the Let's Play format, enjoying the forms of our Halloween Day. So yes, happy Halloween Day, ladies and gentlemen, especially concerning for the fact that, well, leave it on the comments down below for the question of the day. When it comes to the Halloween routine, what was your favorite part in terms of doing Halloween stuff? Well, for me though, back in the day, I usually do trick-or-treating in the past, but nowadays it's about the fact that I usually don't anymore. But that's mainly because, well, if you remember, back in during the forms within last year, specifically how Luigi obviously already did manage to able to complete Luigi's Mansion 1 during the forms within last year, he did end off that particular Let's Play of that game around the exact same time as Halloween Day, and that could be also applied for this year this time around, but this time around though with Luigi's Mansion 2, or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon if you lived in North America. So either way though, because chances are though is about the fact that there's also some rare occasions about the fact that I can able to actually participate in certain Mario Party boards, like specifically spooky themed boards, ranging from Horrorland from Mario Party 2, and Boo's Haunted Bash from Mario Party 4, and there's also the forms of, I would say, King Boo's Haunted Hideaway from Mario Party 8, despite the fact that that board is easily my least favorite board in that particular game. And there's also Boo's Horror Castle from Mario Party 9, Chemic's Carpet Ride from Mario Party Island Tour, Haunted Trail from Mario Party 10, and on top of that, the majority of World 2 in Mario Party Star Rush in Toad Scramble mode, and there's also some other things here and there I can probably think about on top of my head. I mean, relatively speaking, that was about the fact it has been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have done my recording session recently, and that's mainly because, well, generally speaking, that was about the fact that I was going to be able to actually decide to do a nice little video I was going to be working on until tomorrow, but of course, as we expected, that particular project is not going to happen for tomorrow, because as far as I'm aware, the first reaction video I was planning to do, well, I can't tell you exactly what it is just yet, but that's just mainly because, well, fundamentally speaking, we've got about quite a lot of news I would like to discuss upon. Well, first of all, is about the fact, as you probably already know, it's been about, well, let's just say about almost a week ago now, since, let's just say Sonic X Shadow Generations has recently came out for about almost a week ago, specifically 6 days ago, and surprisingly enough, when that particular game was first launched, well, surprisingly enough, not only does it reviewed very, very well, as I stated earlier, when it comes to the forms of critics' reviews alike, ranging from IGN gives the game a 9 out of 10, and meanwhile for PSX Brazil gives the game a 9 out of 10. That could be also applies for Checkpoint, also 9 out of 10. Gaming Bible, also 9 out of 10. Game Rant also receives the game a 9 out of 10. And CG Magazine receives the game 8.5 out of 10. Gamers RD receives the game an 8.5 out of 10. Gaming Trend also gives the game an 8.5 out of 10. Worth Playing is also giving a game an 8.5 out of 10. And Well Played is also received 8.5 out of 10. And meanwhile, when it comes to other critics' reviews out there, ranging from COG Connected, God is a Geek, Metro, Push Square, The Gamer has received the game an 8 out of 10 when it comes to Sonic X Shadow Generations. Oh, and there was also with the forms of VGC, and VG247 also receives the game an 8 out of 10, and there was also SAC News also receives the game an 8 out of 10. However, there are two exceptions here and there in regards to the forms of some very positive review scores in regards to the forms of Sonic X Shadow Generations, and those two are, of course, as I mentioned this before in the past, both of which are GameSpot and Eurogamer, because much like the forms of how it does it on Super Mario Party Jamboree, both of those critic reviews did receive the game a mixed review score, which I was like, that doesn't make that much sense to me, especially considering for the fact that a lot of people out there really do enjoy not only Sonic Generations as a remaster, but as well as the forms of the majority of Shadow Generations as a side story mode. So either way though, but the only thing is kind of unknown at this point when it comes to review scores alike, and that's what appears to be the 6th access. So yeah, that's as far as I can usually try to say about this, I guess. And conveniently enough though, is about the fact that when the actual game was first launched anyway, it did somehow manage able to immediately shift it over 1 million copies sold, which I was like, this is really good, especially concerning for the fact that, well, the only thing I was really hoping for is that that particular game will receive very well in regards to the forms of the actual sales numbers, because unlike stuff it relates to Sonic Superstars, which did happen last year, apparently though, the sales numbers didn't go exactly too great, for what I've heard anyway, in regards to the forms of Sonic Superstars anyway, because not only for the fact that the game itself was actually full price to begin with, but it's also about the fact that it came out the exact same week as in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which you probably already know about that, especially concerning the fact that, well, console wars never ends in regards to the forms of both Sega and Nintendo, because gee, no wonder why that the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games series has officially ended just recently, ever since in about 3 or 2 months ago at this point. So because of that though, yeah, you get the gist of it. So because of that, yeah, I'm very pleased about the fact that Sonic X Shadow Generations is doing really well, not only for its review scores, but as well as the forms of sales numbers recently. So yeah, I must admit though, I'm very impressed about that. So, there's a good thing about the fact that we somehow managed to get not 1, but 3 versions. Except the 4th version, because as you already know, we basically give up on getting the PlayStation 5 nowadays, to me anyway. Plus it's mainly because not only about the fact I don't think it's possible I can able to actually hook up into my Samsung TV, but it's also about the fact that I'm basically low on room in regards to the forms of my cabinet. So, essentially speaking though, is about the fact that I can usually try to save up for potentially the next Nintendo system eventually. So, I digress. Speaking of which though, is about the fact that we actually got ourselves some more stuff in regards to the forms of something Nintendo Switch related, and those are which are, well, 3 of those games are about to be coming onto one of those games in particular, and 2 of those games has been recently been released on the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. Well, to be more specific than that, it is most likely going to be aged for about 17 or over, so we'll explain more about that later. So, for now, let's discuss upon the forms of that particular game I was on about earlier, which appears to be they'll add in 3 additional games into one particular package, and that game in questioning is Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition, and apparently though, 3 of those Worms games is definitely going to be coming until next year with the forms of Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition. So those 3 games are Worms for the Super Nintendo version, Worms for the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive if you lived in Japan, although for some odd reason it's about the fact that on my Nintendo news did somehow made a mistake with that particular spelling error with the European version of the Sega Mega Drive, because it's somehow accidentally called Master Drive, because I'm almost assuming about the fact it's going to be like, I don't know, a mock-up of any sorts, but it's just one of those spelling errors, I guess. And there's also Worms Party for the Game Boy Advance, so kind of interesting, all things considered. And there's also the forms of, there's going to be an addition to the Game Boy Color version of Worms, currently present in the game, which I suppose that's what it says anyway. So, yeah, you get the idea what I was expecting for that particular thing's worth noting for. And it's also worth noting for, actually, is about the fact that recently, I've actually unlocked myself my yet another cosmetic character in Sonic Dash. And this time what appears to be a cosmetic character for Mephiles the Dark, specifically Oni Mephiles. So, because of that, though, is about the fact that the reason why that characters now exist anyway is most likely because of the promotion for the Sonic X Shadow Generations event. So, yeah, relatively speaking, that was about the fact I'm getting very, very close to able to actually reach for a grand total of 100 playable characters in Sonic Dash. So, yeah, I'm getting very close to this point. So, anyways, though, speaking of which, though, also is about the fact that we're about to be able to be receiving not 1, but 2 games have recently been added to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, as I stated before, and both of those games are entirely Halloween related, and those 2 games are Shadow Man and Turok 2 Seeds of Evil, which makes sense, able to actually have ourselves the second Turok game onto the NSO expansion pack, because after all, we've already got the first game already, from the likes of ever since back in June sometime. So yeah, it makes sense, able to actually get ourselves the 3rd entry in the series where it comes to the forms of, you know, the Turok game is about to be on the NSO expansion pack after all. So yeah, makes sense phonetically. So either way though, and it's also worth noting for actually, is about the fact that we're about to be receiving a let's just say, a brand new remastered game is going to be on its way until next year in 2025. And that game in questioning is, well, do you guys even remember about the fact that during the course of the past few years, specifically, in 2017 we've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and technically 2018 if you want to count the DLC, where not only you can able to actually get, well, the DLC additionally, but it's also the physical version here and there as well for the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC. But during the forms of in 2020, we've got ourselves the definitive version of Xenoblade Chronicles, the original game, concerning for the fact that not only you can able to play the game on the go, much like the new 3DS version, but it's also about the fact that it's trying to able to celebrate the game's 10th anniversary when it did originally came out in Japan, so it makes sense for that specific context. And during the forms of in 2022, we've got ourselves Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and now we're about to be getting ourselves the, well, yet another Wii U port, and this time what appears to be Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and I believe that game is about to be releasing during at some point also in 2025, around this exact same year, as in not only Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, but as well as the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, so potentially speaking, I was about the fact that I believe that game is going to be releasing until in March 20th in 2025. Oh gee, that date in particular, it sounds kind of familiar to me, especially concerning for the fact that it's going to be around that time where basically the pandemic was around 5 years at that time. So either way though, let's not discuss upon it right now actually, because as you can see, we finally managed able to take down one of those ghosts that's only accessible in regards to the forms of ScareScraper mode. So either way though, and thankfully though, none of those players have been left, so I suppose that's generally a good thing. So And as far as I've heard about it anyway, in regards to the forms of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, it does manage able to feature some improvements, like for instance the graphics may look a bit more nice at this time. And in addition to that though, from what I've heard anyway, they'll try to able to actually bring in some sort of a additional story into the mix. Like for instance though, is about the fact that, well, it will have additional content, including new story elements, just like the forms of how it does it in well, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition back in 2020, because in that particular version does have an additional story, which appears to be future connected. So, at least what I've heard that anyway, despite the fact I no longer have that game anymore, just because, well, here's the thing though, because I did manage able to play it for a while back in the day, but now I just simply give up on playing it, just because, well, at this point in time it's about the fact that I'm more into, like, other games recently, like, you know, Super Mario RPG Remake, in addition to Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remake, and even eventually at some point it's about the fact that we've only got about 1 week left until Mario Luigi Brothership is going to be releasing for the Nintendo Switch. So even then though, that's one of those games I was really looking forward to. In regards to the forms of trying to able to actually conclude 2024 before we move on to 2025 for sure. So either way though, also about the fact that there's actually a new version update in regards to the forms of, well, the Nintendo Switch firmware update. And as a result though, it's now on to, presumably speaking though, it's now on to version 19.0.1. So, because during the forms within the past few days, at the same time though, is when I did manage to able to keep on playing on Super Mario Party Jamboree, that a lot of people seem to able to complain about the forms of version 19.0.0, because as far as I'm aware, from what I've heard anyway, there are some issues for certain Switch owners or anything else like that, which I've never come across into it for myself, you see. I mean, granted, mainly because about the fact I attempt to play Nintendo Switch games on TV mode, just for the sake of the forms of the actual good picture quality and all that stuff. So yeah, that's what I was expecting for the sake of time. So, but it did state about the forms of quite a number of things here and there. Like for instance, they somehow fixed an issue where GameCube controllers may not be recognized, and they also fixed an issue where communication process like downloads may not function correctly in sleep mode. So I suppose that's that. And in addition to that though, is about the fact that during the forms of any the Splatfest on Splatoon 3, it may look like about the fact that Team Ninja did somehow win in during the forms of this Split Halloween 2024 Splatfest. So it may look like about the fact that I'm almost assuming about the fact that the Splatfest will be over by then. But let's just say, for instance, though, is about the fact I get the strong sense of feeling that much like the forms of how it does in Mario Kart Tour or something, basically though, the other Splatfest will be recycled from time to time, just to ensure for the fact that they might potentially try to plan for, let's just say for Splatoon 4 or something. Well, time will tell, especially considering for the fact that, again, there's no sign of luck in regards to the forms of Switch 2, because at this point in time, I was going to say this right about now, I'm basically giving up on mentioning about the forms of Switch 2 anytime soon, just because at this point in time, that the Nintendo Switch is still doing really dang well, even for the actual sales numbers alike. So either way though, but it's not going to be until likely for the sake of the forms of probably until next Tuesday or sometime that we might able to actually hear about the forms of the financial results for the sake of the forms of the actual sales numbers update during at some point. Well, potentially speaking of, the only new thing they'll try to add for that particular upcoming financial results is, of course, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, because I don't think it's possible we can able to actually see the sales numbers in regards to the forms of not only Super Mario Party Jamboree, but alongside with the forms of Mario Luigi Brothership. So I suppose that particular time will wait during at some point until probably until by the beginning of next year for some time, specifically in February. So either way though, we didn't get the last red coin. Oh well, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. Although, generally speaking, I was about the fact that so far we're actually doing really well in terms of the actual progression for that particular run on Hunter mode. So yeah, let's get into the forms of Hunter mode for a second. Basically though, it's a very simple mode, where basically though is about the fact that your objective is pretty simple. Basically though, in order able to clear one of those floors, is that you have to find one of these ghosts in certain rooms, and it's your job to able to actually capture all of the ghosts, and once you've done so, you move on to the next floor. So yeah, it's a very simple process, especially considering for the fact that, well, we've pretty much done all these capturing ghosts up to this point. Well, it wasn't until whatever we get around on doing Luigi's Mansion 3 at some point until next year. I almost said next week for some reason, because I keep thinking about something else. Well, this is mainly because, as I stated earlier, that it's been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, just because, well, obviously I just want to get this game finished before we move on to the last batch of Let's Plays for 2024, you know, before we move on to 2025. I know I keep on repeating that particular line all over and over again. I mean, let's face it though, it's about the fact that, well, generally speaking, it's about the fact that, well, since that we now on to the final day of October before we move on to tomorrow's next month, that's what appears to be November. So this means about the fact, as I stated earlier, Mario Luigi Brothership is going to be releasing in that particular month. So either way though, chances are though, there's going to be a lot of surprises going around the world. So and also, speaking of which though, in regards to the forms of Sonic X Shadow Generations, what I've noticed is about the fact that they also did manage to able to brought up quite a number of things when it comes to certain changes in comparison to the original version of Sonic Generations specifically. Like, we've already pointed out ever since about a couple of months ago that the playable unlockable port of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 from 1991 from the console version will no longer be included, and on top of that, the PC version will no longer have use of an external configuration tool. Like, all the settings can now be manually changed in game. So meanwhile, on the PC version, the 3D feature will also be removed. So either way though, again, I do apologize for that particular tongue twist in the end, folks, but I digress. And we already know for the fact that the Casino Nights DLC from the console version to the PC version is now included in the base game, so no need to rely on the forms of, you know, free DLC or anything else like that. And on top of that, out of nowhere, right there, right on, which is actually a music based off from Sonic Rush, by the way, has been replaced of the theme of Westopolis in a collection room, likely due to Sega no longer owning the rights to the song. So because of that though, yeah, I've honestly have no idea why they've gone for this change, especially considering for the fact that obviously though that particular right there, right on song actually comes from Leaf Storm zone from Sonic Rush. So yeah, I've got no words to say, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it is interesting to say the least, but still, I've no idea why they've gone for this particular replacement music all of a sudden. So either way though, that's kind of weird, you know? And also, about the fact that there's also another thing is worth mentioning for it, is about the fact that in regards to the forms of new version updates, recently though, Epic Mickey Rebrushed has also received a brand new update, and this time what appears to be version 1.0.3, and they did brought up 4 fixes they somehow brought up. Like, for instance though, they fixed an issue where various graphical fixes and improvements, and there's also various audio fixes and improvements, and also they fixed various quest progression issues from occurring, and finally fixing the forms of spelling and localization fixes and improvements. So yeah, that's basically all they had in regards to the forms of that particular game itself. Mind you, about the fact that I still yet not get a chance to able to get that game for me though, well, that's just mainly because I do miss the old days when it comes to using the Wii Remote for able to actually, you know, use paint or thinner when it comes to using the pointer, motion controls kind of thing, which unfortunately though the Switch version has been absent all of a sudden because it's now been replaced by, you know what I'm talking about, the right stick, and on top of that with the forms of, well, gyro sensing and stuff like that, which is, well, kind of meh to me, I guess. So, but I digress. So now we're on to floor number 8, So anyway, another thing is worth noting for actually is about the fact that there is technically yet another game has also been revealed, well, ever since around a couple of days ago as well, but this time around though, it appears to be inspired by Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, and they somehow managed able to reveal there was going to be a complete edition, so yeah, that seems kind of rando. And apparently though, that particular game is going to be releasing until the 3rd of December in 2024, so I guess it's only a matter of time about the fact that for those of you ever missed out on the online version or the normal version of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, then you might able to get a chance to actually get yourselves a complete upgrade. Although, it does have some side effects to it though. Like, for instance though, is about the fact that it did state about the forms of game content and data transfer and new features, which I could probably think about on top of my head. I mean, I didn't usually follow that much of Animal Crossing series as much these days, plus it's mainly because no matter what though, it's about the fact I'm still basically saving up for potentially the next Nintendo system eventually at some point until next year, and maybe some occasional Nintendo Switch games coming up, ranging from, you know, we've already pre-ordered Mario Luigi Brothership not too while ago, but eventually at some point, probably by the end of the year, I can potentially try to able to pre-order Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, so that way we can able to actually show off the one of the worlds that was originally on the 3DS version, and this time upscaled to HD within a Switch version. So yeah, stay tuned for that, I guess. So, but anyway, and there's also another thing worth noting for is about the fact that there is actually a mini game in Super Mario Party, which appears to be Time to Shine, where basically though is about the fact that if you don't manage to play as Waluigi in that particular mini game, basically though Waluigi will be standing on the podium and trying to make you trying to do copying poses as what he does. However though, if you play as Waluigi though, or potentially I should say, if he managed able to participate in that minigame, he'll be replaced by either Luigi, Peach, Daisy, or Rosalina. Well, there was actually a similar treatment to this in Super Mario Party Jamboree called Copycat Curry. Basically though, if you don't play as Waluigi though, obviously though Waluigi will do the usual posing stuff for you. However, if you manage to let Waluigi decide able to participate on that particular minigame with Copycat Curry, Waluigi will be replaced by a different amount of characters. Well, you're still able to actually see Luigi for time to time, but this time you're able to actually see not only Yoshi, but as well as Bodo and Wario. So yeah, no girl players this time around, unlike the forms of how it does it in Super Mario Party in Time to Shine minigame. So that's one thing you might be able to classify for noticing this, although we'll save more discussions about the forms of Super Mario Party Jamboree if we get on to doing that particular Let's Play at some point until next year, if possible. So either way though, yeah, you might as well stay tuned for that. So, but anyway, another thing is worth noting for actually, out of nowhere, we're about to be receiving a downloadable demo of Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble on the Nintendo Switch, despite the fact it's already too late for now on for me though, because mind you, I've already received the game ever since around 4 months ago, despite the fact I've yet to come back into it, but that's just mainly because I'm still practically waiting for the last batch of DLC will be available during that time. So maybe potentially speaking, I was about the fact I can probably keep on playing that game more often until whenever we decide to do that particular Let's Play of the game at some point in the future as well. So yeah, possibilities were endless in regards to the forms of 2025 coming up. So anyway, another thing is worth noting for is about the fact that we might able to actually get ourselves the first ever trailer for Mission Impossible 8, and I believe it's about to be releasing probably at some point until November, specifically Monday, November in the 11th. So, yeah, I guess time will tell, especially concerning for the fact that, after all, it's been about a whole year since, you know, Mission Impossible 7, or should I say Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I'm not exactly sure what the actual reveal of the film is going to be called, in regards to the films of Mission Impossible 8. So, time will tell, and we'll probably find out more about it, probably at some point until the next 2 weeks to come. So, yeah, I'm a little bit optimistic about that. So, either way, though. And I suppose, generally speaking, there was technically one last thing I want to mention about before I get on to the final thing I want to discuss upon in regards to the forms of Luigi's Mansion 2 itself. Apparently, though, there was actually yet another new edition of Minecraft the game, which, to be more specifically, not only for the Nintendo Switch, but as well as the forms of the PlayStation 5 physical versions. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because they somehow revealed a brand new cover art for Minecraft, and what does it feature this time? Well, it does manage to feature not only Steve, but as well as Alex did somehow almost run straight towards the actual thing itself. It kind of reminds me of the forms of the box art from the likes of Sonic X Shadow Generations a little bit, or the original Sonic Generations for that matter, and heck, even around the exact same purpose as the forms of Sonic 06 box art, except the fact it's a little bit more colorful and vibrant. So, but I digress. So now we move on to the final floor of Hunter Mode, which I can't believe we somehow made it at this point at long last, after so many issues through our runs and all that stuff. So hopefully we should be able to redeem ourselves from this point. So anyways though, so yeah, let's get to the forms of, as you might have noticed, about the fact that we actually got one of those medals in during the forms of the game's completion requirements in Luigi's Mansion 2 or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Well, that's the reason for this, is because this game does manage to have a 3 EGAD medals, so potentially speaking, you get one of them by simply beating the game for the first time, which is self-explanatory, and then in order to be able to get the second EGAD medal, that's what requires you to be able to go back onto the previous missions, and you need to be able to try to aim for the 3-star ranking medal with each and every single mission, including the extra missions as well. And the third and the final EGAD medal, which does manage to requires a lot of grinding, and as a result, not only do you have to be able to actually capture every single boost, but also you need to capture every single ghosts in not only in Evershade Valley, but on top of that, you also need to capture all the ghosts in ScareScraper mode. And finally, most notably though, is about the fact that not only do you have to be able to upgrade your status quote, or specifically you have to upgrade your Poltergeist 5000, but also get this, you have to get every single gems as well, and that way you can able to actually guarantee to get yourselves all 3 of those EGAD medals. So, and as far as for that particular process of this particular Let's Play is concerned, I literally did try it, especially concerning for the fact that much like the forms of how it does it on, well, back in the day, with the first game in particular, on the GameCube version most likely, that was so close to able to get myself every single gold frames within every single portrait ghosts in particular. So yeah, that's one thing I would classify for mentioning about that particular stuff. And so far I somehow got into second place, so okay, I guess that makes it a little bit more obvious than ever. So, but yeah, if you do manage to able to complete certain amount of floors in ScareScraper mode, we're able to actually receive the fireworks at the end. So yeah, I guess that's all there is to it in regards to the forms of ScareScraper mode. So yeah, once you're done with that particular session, then obviously though you can able to actually get even more money in addition to more ghosts you somehow captured, and specifically in ScareScraper mode in particular. So as a result, we somehow got about 290 gold. So yeah, that seems quite a lot, although it's really depending on the forms of how well you did in terms of precision, ranging from first, second, or third. So yeah, that's saying much. So either way though, I suppose that's all there is to it in regards to the forms of trying to show things off in regards to the forms of Luigi's Mansion 2, aka Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon if you lived in North America. So generally speaking, now let's give my final thoughts of Luigi's Mansion 2 or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. I will say, I do still still enjoy this game from time to time, but I will admit it though right away, it is definitely still is my least favorite games in terms of the Luigi's Mansion games in particular. Sorry again with the phones that tongue twist in the end, folks, but I do apologize for that. But the positives though, I will say for this much, is about the fact that the gameplay itself is pretty fun, although despite the fact that this game is heavily utilizing mission structure, which it might turn some people off, but it doesn't bother me onto the grand scheme of things. But there's one particular mission in general that gives me a lot of repetition, and that's what appears to be, of course, mission D-3. This is mainly because during my spare own time, I have to replay that particular mission multiple times, not only for the sake of the forms of trying to capturing the exact same ghosts over and over and over again, but also with the worst bonus area I've ever experienced in a Luigi's Mansion game. That's of course the snowball fight. This is mainly because the aiming radical sucks. I will say this much, when it comes to likely sucking up things and trying to blow back at certain things. So yeah, you get the idea what I'm talking about, especially concerning for the fact that I refuse to go back into that mission ever again. And in addition to that though, the graphics do look pretty good, even though this game was originally a 3DS title. So jumping onto the Switch version, some graphics have been altered slightly, which I do slightly appreciate, but at the same time it kind of feels a bit jarring, because it still kind of reminds me of the exact same graphical style has been reused from the likes of the announcement trailer of Luigi's Mansion 3 back in 2018 regardless. So either way, and the controls wise, specifically on the Switch version, I think is actually a lot more comfortable this time around, because when I did manage to test it out on the 3DS version, my god, my hands will get cramped after a while. And usually, potentially speaking, that's as far as I can usually say this right now. It's a good thing we did some tackle for the Switch version as opposed to the 3DS version in particular. So, now I suppose the final thing I want to address about this particular point is that, well, I feel like the ghost variety is alright, but it's not my kind of favorite types in terms of the forms of those specific ghost designs. Like, it does have some personality, but it's more accurately like Illumination kind of like personality or something like that, like Minions for instance. So I might be biased, I guess, although I found the story to be a little bit simple to me. But regardless of such though, if you do miss out on the 3DS version, I will still say you can able to recommend this game, but usually relatively speaking, if only because you can able to experience online on the Switch version, whilst on the 3DS version you cannot anymore. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching our Let's Play of Luigi's Mansion 2, aka Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and this is me, Maxi here, from the likes of the Maxi Toys, and we'll stay tuned for Luigi's Mansion 3 until next year. So I'll see you guys until at some point soon. Bye!